What happens when on-screen chemistry refuses to stay on screen? Intro. When a story doesn't end at cut, there is a moment every production reaches when the director says, cut. The cameras stop rolling, and the scene is supposed to stay exactly where it belongs, on screen. Most stories obey that rule. But every once in a while something happens that doesn't. Sometimes, chemistry doesn't fade when the lights go off. Sometimes it lingers, in the pauses, in the way two people keep moving in sync even when there's no script guiding them anymore. And when that happens, audiences feel it long before they understand it. That's when questions start forming. That's when fascination turns into debate. That's when people begin to wonder whether what they're seeing is still performance, or something else entirely. Because when on-screen chemistry refuses to stay on screen, it changes everything. How chemistry is supposed to work. In theory, chemistry is a tool. Actors train for it. Directors shape it. Editors refine it. It's meant to appear when needed and disappear when the scene ends. Controlled. Contained. Professional. Most on-screen pairings follow this pattern perfectly. The connection is convincing while the story is playing, then gently dissolves once the role is done. And audiences accept this because they understand the rules. But the problem begins when chemistry stops behaving like a tool and starts behaving like a constant. The first sign something is different. The first sign is never a dramatic moment. Subtle. It's how two actors don't need direction to find each other's rhythm. How they anticipate reactions. How silences feel intentional instead of empty. It shows up in rehearsals. In interviews. In moments where nothing is being performed. When chemistry refuses to stay on screen, it doesn't become louder. It becomes quieter and more consistent. And that's what unsettles people. Because performance usually turns off. Real connection doesn't. When audiences notice before the camera does. Interestingly, viewers often sense the shift before creators acknowledge it. Fans notice. Glances that last too long. Smiles that aren't timed for effect. A comfort that doesn't reset between scenes. Awareness that doesn't disappear off camera. Suddenly, behind-the-scenes footage feels just as charged as the show itself. And that's when people stop asking, are they good actors? And start asking, why does this feel different? Why this makes people uncomfortable? There's an unspoken expectation that emotional closeness must have a clear explanation. If it's scripted, it's safe. If it's labeled, it's understandable. If it's defined, it's controllable. But when chemistry spills beyond the script without a public explanation, it creates ambiguity. And ambiguity makes people uneasy. Audiences aren't disturbed by affection. They're disturbed by affection they can't categorize. So speculation begins. Rumors form. Lines are drawn. Not because something inappropriate is happening, but because something genuine might be. The invisible shift in energy. When chemistry refuses to stay on screen, something shifts in the atmosphere around the pair. They stop feeling like two individuals sharing a project. They begin to feel like a unit. Not romantically, not publicly, not even intentionally, just energetically. They move together. They regulate each other. They respond instinctively. And the audience picks up on it, because humans are wired to recognize connection when it's real. The dangerous myth. They must be crossing a line. This is where the narrative often turns unfair. Instead of asking whether two people can share deep understanding professionally, many jump straight to the idea that boundaries must be broken. But chemistry spilling off screen doesn't automatically mean rules are being violated. More often it means a mutual trust has formed. Emotional safety exists. Communication is unforced. Presence feels natural. These are not signs of recklessness. They are signs of alignment. The real issue is that we've been taught that professionalism must look distant, and when it doesn't, we assume something is wrong. Why this kind of chemistry can't be faked. You can rehearse dialogue. You can block movement. You can plan emotional beats. But you cannot fake consistency. When chemistry exists only on screen, it turns off cleanly. When it's real, it shows up everywhere. quietly, unintentionally, without effort. That's why audiences keep replaying small moments instead of big scenes. That's why a shared look becomes more powerful than a scripted confession. Because authenticity doesn't perform. Simply exists. What actually happens between the two people? Here's the part people often miss. When on-screen chemistry refuses to stay on screen, it doesn't mean the people involved are confused. Usually means the opposite. They understand each other extremely well. They know how far to lean in. They know when to pull back. They know how to remain grounded while still connected. What looks like emotional spillover to outsiders is often emotional regulation between two people who are attuned, not reckless. Why time doesn't dilute it? If chemistry is artificial, time exposes it. But when time passes and the dynamic remains steady, not escalating, not collapsing, just existing, it tells a different story. Because false intimacy burns fast. Real connection stabilizes. And that steadiness becomes the quiet proof people can't argue with. What this kind of chemistry teaches us challenges assumptions. It asks whether connection must always be explained. Whether closeness must always be justified. Whether boundaries must always look rigid to be real. It shows that two people can share something meaningful without naming it, advertising it, or defending it. And that, perhaps, is what makes it so compelling. Conclusion. When chemistry refuses to stay put. When on-screen chemistry refuses to stay on screen, it stops being entertainment and starts becoming a mirror. A mirror of how deeply humans notice connection. A mirror of how uncomfortable we are with ambiguity. A mirror of how rarely we see genuine understanding presented without spectacle. It isn't about romance. It isn't about scandal. It isn't about crossing lines. It's about what happens when two people meet at the same emotional frequency, and don't feel the need to pretend otherwise. And maybe that's why these connections linger so long in people's minds. Because some stories don't end when the scene does. They just continue, quietly, honestly, and without asking permission.